were going to have our marriage. And so we sat down, and next to the marriage bed, a newlywed couple should have 2 chairs with a table between the 2 of you. And you can sit down and have conversations and communication. That was one of John's and my greatest strength. Well, John liked to talk anyway, so I can talk a lot, so there was no problem in communication. But so we would sit there, and if we had a problem, if we had something that we were going over and over again and not resolving, we would sit down and we would finally decide how to solve it. And so that was one of the things that we did. If we did get into an argument, it wasn't very often, but if we did, John would really fight dirty. He would pay me a compliment. When you're right in the middle of an argument, and how do you deal with that? I'd go, John, that's not fair. You can't say something nice when I'm trying to make my point with you. But he would say how beautiful my hair looked, or he always had a compliment for me. Almost daily, he had a compliment for me. And so that was kind of how we started our relationship. We tried to keep a spiral going up. We tried to treat each other as though if you were good friends, how you would treat a good friend. Every night when I went to bed, he would turn my bed covers down. He had made sure I had water in my cup. I mean, every night I would come to bed maybe 11 o'clock, and I'd forget all about it, and I'd walk in, and there was my bed turned down for me. He would always carry the laundry basket, and he would say, "Thank you for doing the laundry for me." I never had to ask him to take out the trash. He always took out the trash just automatically, and also emptying the dishwasher. And when I was a school teacher for 32 years, and I would come home just completely exhausted, he would get up and start doing the dishes for me. And then he would stop and come over and give me a back rub, because he knew that I'd had a really strenuous day. I never asked him. And every once in a while, we would have a date night. And I decided that he would call me up and ask me out on a date. So I'd go, okay. And so then I would tell him that he needs to pick me up in front of the house. So he would drive out the back of the driveway there, come to the front of the house. This is after we've been married like 20 years. And he would come up to the front door, ring the doorbell. And I wouldn't answer it right away. I'd make him wait. I didn't want him to think I was too eager. So he would go out on the date, and we would kind of talk a little bit like we were just getting acquainted. I'd say, well, tell me about yourself. What do you do? And so we would do that. And then after the date, we'd go to the movie or dinner or something like that. He would stop the car, and he always opened the door for me. Always came around. Even in the driveway, he would open the door for me and help me in. Then he would walk me to the door, and if he was really good that night, I would give him a kiss goodnight. Then he would get back in the car, drive down the driveway, back door. So we did fun things like that to keep our marriage fresh and exciting. We kept the spiral going up, and if we found that the spiral began to go down, we would stop and we would say, this isn't how we want it to go. Let's figure this out so that we don't have to keep talking about it, keep bringing it up. And he did not like bickering. He did not like bickering. You know, when you almost die, as many times as John almost died, you realize that life is too short, and so many things are so petty and not worth the breath to even discuss it. There is I found this these 2 naked Cupid dolls, and Love Is. And it says here, thank you for loving me. And that's really how I feel about John. I thanked him all the time. He'd come into a room, and I would instantly get a lift just seeing him, because we always had this positive relationship going on. Okay, now, and going through some of his papers, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. John's list and the Nile was such an important part of his life. I found this old letter from his sister, and there's a couple here who can verify this. John would send letters home to Letty and Jack, his parents, and they would take him to their local church, and they would keep everybody up to date what John was doing on the Nile. And he had been chased by a white rhino. And so this was a letter written by his sister. It says, we keep informed about you through Mother and Daddy. You certainly are having some hair-raising experiences. Golly, is it worth risking your life? Now, this one is on the Nile. Is this worth risking your life for? Why don't you come home? Who cares whether you go down the full length of the Nile or not? In a few years from now, it will be forgotten anyway. And I read that, and I just thought that was so funny. And here it became, one of his major things. Also, when John was 15, he made his list. And the list that you have on your table, and there's one for everybody. There's one of the little takeaways for you. And if you'd also please put your name, address, and phone number on the guest. I didn't want to have a guest book sign-in sheet, and block everybody up. So if you would, fill one of those out, that would be great. But he made his list, and it changed his life, of course. But at age 18, he enlisted in the Air Force. Actually, he enlisted when he was 17, but he couldn't get in, so he took some classes, and then he was admitted in when he was 18. He never wanted to talk about his service very much. When one Memorial Day, because every Memorial Day, I would always, and Veterans Day, I would always go in and I'd say, thank you, John, for enlisting at the age that you did, and you could have given your life for our country, and I want to thank you so much for doing that. He made it back, and he seemed okay. And and being married to him, I would think that, wouldn't you think that he would have nightmares? Wouldn't you think that he would have all these where you almost died, that you would once in a while have a nightmare? And the only one that he ever had was, he had once in a while a dream that a tidal wave was getting him. But I said to him one day, because this is a question I'd never heard any reporter, any magazine, or any interviewer ever ask him, and it was that, how did you go through 3 years of being in the Air Force? He had, and there's about 53 bombing missions. They would come back to the base with gun holes in the side of the airplane, and other buddies that they had just had a meal with did not make it back. And they would have to go into the tents of the other buddies and gather up their things to be shipped home. And, here he is at age 18 having to do this and deal with this kind of a thing. And I said, how did you come home and seemingly get through this and not have it affect you psychologically? I mean, it could have completely messed you up. And his response was that he knew when he came out and he kept focused that he had his goal list. He had his 127 goals that he wanted to accomplish. And he was anxious to get started on that list. And that was what he was a forward-thinking man like that. He would always think forward. When we were first married, we were only married for a couple of years when we found out that he had prostate cancer. And we were going to completely remodel and redo the house, and then he got this prostate cancer. And so we stopped the whole, even thinking about it. He said, I don't know how long I'm going to live, and I don't want to be involved with a remodel like this. And so I said, okay, fine, we'll stop. And so I saved money we were married 33 years, and like 30 years ago I said, okay, John, you survived now. It's time that we remodel or redecorate the house. Okay, it's my turn now. We get to do this. He says, okay, great. And then he was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer. The two bookends of our marriage. Right when we were going to remodel, he happened to have these two. And then I said, okay, well, I will, we'll stop everything. And he said, nope, you're going to finish this time. You go ahead and finish. So that's why you see that we're in the process. And then knowing that he was sick, I said, all right, you're going to get better, and we're going to have a celebration of life party for you, and you're going to be here. But he didn't keep his end of the bargain, but we're still having the celebration of life with him. But the point is that he had a forward look. He didn't dwell in the past. He didn't want to be in the cancer organizations of the past. It's like, I'm done with it, and he would go on with it. And so maybe that will be a little help for some of you, or if you're going through something. And I asked John, you know, one day, he was 22 years older than I said, one day, you won't be here. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And he said, you are going to grieve for a little while, and then you are going to go on with your life. And he said, if you are happy, I will be happy. And friends and family, tonight I am really very, very, very happy. I am so, my heart just overflows with love and appreciation for each and every one of you. And so you are really making John really happy right now, wherever he is. And I thank him so much for 33 wonderful years of marriage. And I thank him for loving me. And I've considered it a privilege being his wife. And thank you so much. I love you all.